Hello everyone. This video is my response to the land redistribution without compensation policy of South Africa. As you can see, I don't show my face or name in the video due to fear of safety for me and my family. 74% of farmland in South Africa land is owned by 8% of whites. These whites got this land as ancestral property which was stolen from blacks. The Dutch whites came and took the land of innocent Africans by force and inhuman cruelty. No whites were upset when people were killed, enslaved and subjected to apartheid. But now when the land is redistributed to its rightful owner, the whites claim injustice. How ironic. Some white Africans I meet say to me that blacks are incapable people to defend their land in the first place. They claim that slavery and apartheid was the best thing that happened to blacks and it made them modern. Well, to that I say, there are a lot of successful countries in the world without a slave and apartheid past. And moreover, slavery and apartheid was only for benefit of whites, while the blacks were tortured and got a few crumbs from their own land. Any person will always prefer to live as a free man on his own land and hut, than be a slave in a big mansion. Let me show the history of these inhuman deeds in Africa. When the Dutch colonizers invaded Africa, they wanted the land and labor for their economic benefit. They exchanged weapons for the captured tribe members and took those slaves to their colonies too. Black slaves among African tribes could become family members or achieve higher status in the black society. But under the whites, they had no chance. They were given new names and branded. The blacks under whites were subjected to worst subhuman conditions imaginable. To avoid suffering, blacks often committed suicide or starved themselves to death. Black women and children were sexually abused by the white colonizers. Meanwhile, the tribes in Africa became more engaged in war with these newly acquired firearms. The black Africans were made to work as slaves in their own country by the white colonizers. Those who could not fulfill the farm duties were tortured, whipped, and hanged. The underachievers had their hands cut off as an example to other slaves. Then after freedom from slavery, apartheid was set up by the whites to racially dominate and discriminate blacks in their own land and control all the African resources. Blacks were sidelined to poorest located and work as very cheap labor in gold mines. Any protest was unlawful as blacks were not citizens in their own land. Inhuman experiments were done on blacks to find cure for diseases. As blacks were resettled again to the worst locations possible, they were also denied education so that whites could always oppress them. While the whites gloated, feasted and enjoyed on the wealth of blacks, the blacks starved to death. Whites believed that their white race was superior and used the Bible and religion to justify their inhuman acts. Whites still claim that it was God who gave them the opportunity and blessing to torture blacks in their own land and take all their resources while keeping them oppressed. It does seem that the odd of white Africans was super racist against blacks as he allowed their inhuman suffering under whites for centuries. Personally, I believe that these people use God to justify their crimes and convince themselves their inhuman deeds are morally okay. Some whites argue that not all the land they owned was stolen from the blacks. Some of the land was uninhabited. To that I say, there is a lot of uninhabited free land in America. If the Chinese try to take it, they will be thrown in prison. Just because one overstays in someone's house unjustly for a long time, does not mean they own the house and start controlling the real owners. Just because whites exploited most of the African resources for a long time doesn't mean they have the right to deny the resources to the real Africans. Just like Africa, a lot of other countries got their freedom from oppressors. Some examples are China, India, America, Australia, etc. But unlike Africa, they all drove their oppressors away after freedom and took back the resources. Gandhi in India launched Quit India movement to drive out the colonizers. Had one been in South Africa too, the condition of blacks would have been much better. But sadly in Africa this is not the case. The majority of resources are held by the whites. They got it ancestrally, which the stolen or robbed wealth of the blacks. This unjust concentration of wealth and African resources in hand of white minority denies blacks to prosper in their own land. Whites keep all African wealth in their hand and blame all the problems on corruption. Agreed. There is corruption in South Africa, but which country is free from corruption? In every country politicians are known for their corruption. But not every country has a dark and colonial past like that of Africa. Effects of 200 years of slavery and 50 years of apartheid cannot be erased in 2 decades. Definite not white. All the South African wealth is concentrated in hands of the whites. Redistribution of all resources is necessary for the true justice for the real Africans. Whites who are unwilling to give up the stolen land must understand that this change is inevitable. Blacks have kept quiet for a very long time. Even after the apartheid era, blacks had fear of looking a white in the eye or interacting with them. Such are the effects of colonial racisms. The black Africans were sometimes amazed by the confidence of African Americans. The system in South Africa also created a false idea in everyone that white is more beautiful and acceptable. Even today, 2 decades after apartheid, racism is seen in the society. Black African babies adopted by white couples often end up in bad situations. They are many times abused by the biological children, starved to death or contributed to human trafficking. Ethiopia realized this and stops foreign adoptions mainly by America and Europe. Whites twist history, facts and science to justify all the evils in Africa, and turn a blind eye to years of racial injustice up to today. These are some of the things whites say to justify and keep the stolen land, and I will answer each one. Number 1, why not give it to the people who's been doing this for years instead of taking their farms and giving it to fucking retards who have no experience at all? Well, just because you have the stolen land for years, does not make it yours. Just like an illegal Mexican living in America is not a citizen of U.S. and has no right to stay there, no matter how long he has been staying there. Colonizers lived in China and India for many years, but colonizers do not own any of the land or resources now. Blacks have never had the resources and land. Where do you expect them to get experience from? After land reform, this can be solved. Whites have only owned and worked on the land to fill their pockets from African resources, not to feed the poor blacks. Number 2, double-digit IQ brain nibber asking for the farmland shows perfect example that nibbers really are retarded. The racism part is unacceptable for any normal human, so let us move above this. This is always a trick of whites to claim that blacks have low IQ and don't deserve to be equal to whites. IQ can be tested only if you are literate. It's not the most precise tool to test intelligence. Black Africans are mostly poor and have high illiteracy rates. Most black children are too poor to even go to a school. Redistribution of resources to the blacks will fix this. Blacks have invented many important inventions that I will mention later. Number 3, we whites want to leave, but we will take all our inventions with us. Okay. Before leaving with inventions, leave all the invention that you did not invent by yourself. Traffic signal and resistor was invented by blacks, so leave all your electronic devices. Gunpowder was invented by Chinese, so leave that too. Zero was invented by Indians. Leave all modern mathematics and its applications in every field too. White people are diplomatic but stab when unexpected. Some whites openly send racist and mean hate comments on Winnie Mandela death, a person who fought to end oppression on blacks. Many talk with sugar-coated words about peace and justice, whereas they have shown none to anyone. Black people are either very friendly or very aggressive. But they are same on the inside and out. Whites insist that, without them, the blacks would starve and die and that they work for black families. This is a total lie. Blacks existed way before the white colonizers came and will exist even if they go. Whites use the African resources to prosper themselves and give leftover crumbs to the blacks. The blacks can use their resources for themselves without the white control. And whites don't teach blacks about hard work. Blacks did it for 250 years without decent payment and unbearable torture. Every black over 30 in South Africa has suffered from apartheid and whites above 30 have enjoyed it. Whites enjoyed all the resources for themselves too long. We all must remember our pasts. Amusingly, blacks are asked to forget everything. Which other group forget the past and present injustices? Jews? Indians? Chinese? Japanese? Korean? Wait. No one else does. It's natural that the 30-plus blacks Africans fight and take vigorous efforts to get justice for the blacks. Blacks have been kept at a disadvantage for centuries. But all things must change. There are many evils in our society that needs to be put to an end. For example, modern slavery, water, food scarcity and female mutilation. But for this, the redistribution of African land and resources to the black Africans is very necessary and should be done first. I sincerely hope that all will understand this and come forward for the political and economic equality and opportunity for African blacks. I am not stopping my work with this video. Please share this video with everyone and let hope for a better Africa with equal land and resources for the blacks in their land.